Morena Fourth Estate, Morena fishing industry and other stakeholders, thank you for turning out. Look, I'll go straight into it, and there will be an opportunity for you to pose questions of some of the senior members of the industry, or indeed the CEO of the CFIC Council and others, so I've got no compunction with who you talk to. In 1986, the QMS system was introduced, if I'm not mistaken, laws, it was Colin Moyle in the Longy government, and the set of proposals contained in this document are probably the most comprehensive, or certainly the breadth of the potential changes enables me to say it's arguably the broadest set of changes since the QMS was introduced. What drives it? It's informed by a working party that was created, and joint stewardship of it was between our CEO, Mr. Smith, and key figures from the industry, including Craig Lawson and other members from Sanford's, Tallies, Moana, Sea Lords, and some of the smaller elements of our seafood sector, including the crayfish industry. There's nothing particularly new in this document. It goes back to a number of the gripes in the days of John Luxon and Bolger's time, where there were endeavours made to improve the capacity of our regulatory framework to give more scope for the industry. Underneath this document is a deeper philosophical debate. You would know that New Zealand has an unusual fishing management system in terms of other countries, because we have the property rights-based quota system. And the expectation about 15, 20 years ago is that the quid pro quo is that the industry would be enabled to enjoy greater self-regulatory powers. The document does not go that far, although there is another body of work that I'm expecting to gain access to from the industry in the not too distant future. But obviously this has been through Cabinet, and there are some issues that will excite various elements of the broader fishing community, especially on cameras. As you know, New Zealand First is no fan of cameras. However, we're faithful to our coalition agreement and to Cabinet, and there is a discussion as to the fact that cameras are now a feature of the fishing industry, but how should the information be treated that comes from camera footage? My position is that it should be exempted from the Official Information Act, so that the camera footage does not fall into the hands or onto the lap of people that, in my experience, hope to do damage to this valuable industry. However, that's the view of a New Zealand First Member of Parliament. It's not the view of Cabinet. But let's see what comes out of it. There are other areas, not the least of which is what to do when you're way out at sea and you catch the wrong sort of fish. How do you account for it without it being overly bureaucratic? So there are a range of technical changes, and it's important that you realise that this document has been obviously developed in association with the working group. There are people from the civil society. No, actually that's to ruin a good word, from the NGOs. They're not civil society. They will no doubt engage with me on the document, but it's driven by a need to boost the productivity, boost the jobs, and create more export income out of this sector, which is really valuable in certain parts of regional New Zealand. It's not overly slanted towards Māoridom. As the former chair of Te Hukai Moana and the former chair of Sea Lords, I expect my own people to stand shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the industry and pay their way. The rights that were protected and safeguarded in the fisheries settlement will be upheld, but after that settlement, the expectation of New Zealanders is that, irrespective of your background or your ethnicity, we're all in this together to ensure that the industry remains a sustainable enterprise, but at the same time maintains jobs, income, and some viability for we communities. So please report it accurately. I'm not going to walk back any of my rhetoric. Having said that, I know that it's a consultation process and there'll be a variety of views that eventually we'll have to take account of as a cabinet, and my expectation is that legislation will be passed before the next election. And in terms of the more fundamental reforms that have been pushed by some elements of the industry, I will have to take that matter up with David Seymour as the Minister of Regulatory Reform, and that will happen after I've received the report from the industry. If you find it convenient now, I'll take any questions, or if you wish to hear from other members of the sector, be my guest.
Yeah, you're suggesting that videos obtained under the Official Information Act are harmful to the industry. Is it not harmful, the fact that people are doing harmful things on camera? Is that not the harmful part? The fact that it's
You ask a very good question. If there are offences being committed in the industry, they should be charged in the court of a legal forum. Not charged on TikTok, not charged in the court of public opinion. And obviously, camera footage, in the event a prosecution should come to pass, is very valuable. But I do not agree it should be turned into some sort of ideological commodity used to hammer out of context what the industry is doing when they are incredibly conscious of their social license.
So you don't think the public have a right to know what's happening in the sector at the moment?
No, I don't believe in state surveillance. Does the public have the right to know what's happening in every cow shed tonight? Does the public have a right to know what's happening in every egg farm? Does the public have a right to know what's happening in your home? No, they don't. The public should expect that the regulator will take robust action when offences are detected, and if it comes to pass that the camera footage enables the state to fulfil their prosecutorial obligations, that's what the public should have confidence in.
But just to be clear, Cabinet said it doesn't agree with you on that?
No, it's all in this document. Please read it. These are the options. These are the options. Sorry?
We haven't yet seen the document,
Yeah.
so it's a little hard to ask questions on what's in the document.
Yeah, so this is an option. Yeah, I understand your question. So obviously Cabinet has signed off that cameras are a permanent feature of the fishing industry. Then it becomes a matter, after we put the ear tags on all the cows, there are certain protections for that information. I want those protections extended to the fishing industry, but obviously made available to the regulators so that where prosecutorial decisions or education takes place, that information can be of great value.
Does Cabinet agree with you that you want to take the Official Information Act out of the process?
Cabinet agreed to this discussion document, and then when I get the feedback, New Zealand First will marshal its arguments, which we campaigned on, by the way, and I have an electoral mandate to project. Now, whether or not I can convince my Cabinet colleagues, well, that's for the future.
What protections do you want, though? What protections do you want on that?
Yes, well, I've asked the officials to work with the industry, the Ombudsman's office, and other people who get sort of excitable about privacy matters to work out, have we got the boundary and can we trust the provisions at the moment in the official information legislation to address the privacy concerns of people in their place of work. I do not accept state surveillance of industry.
Are you changing the way, or are you proposing to change the way that total allowable catch is consultable? Are you removing the public?
Okay, no. We are looking at carrying over some quota, and that obviously will have an impact on sustainability decisions to ensure that if quota is carried over in a more efficient way from year to year, but this document does not contemplate restricting the ability of stakeholders to influence those scientific decisions. I have to say, there is one school of thought that ministers should not be involved in any manner or form with making sustainability decisions because we're politicians and we might be susceptible to blandishments and other sorts of depredations. As a politician, I dismiss all that filigree. Not interested in that.
Could you outline some of the other major changes in there?
Beg your pardon?
Could you outline some of the other major changes?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So the most, I'll go to some of the areas where we might have low information about stocks. We have a limited amount of money. There are some particular controversial types of kaimoana, and we want to ensure that the information we have is adequately distributed as to where the risks are. The second thing I would say, where I do think that there's going to be quite a few problems, is there's been this bugbear in our industry, and I don't want to get too technical or I'll put myself to sleep. When you catch fish, how do you account for it? In New Zealand, if you catch tuna and you don't have the entitlement for it, you can just chuck it back in the ocean. We do not have that broad entitlement, which I do think we should have now that we've got cameras, to enable people to discard at sea as opposed to bringing lots of fish back to land. Now, this is an issue, I have to say, that goes back to the Bolger government and this document, and I accept for a lot of the recreational people, they could get toey about that. So that's a small example where arguably there'll be a big debate between a very well-organised lobby, otherwise known as, recreationalists, and the caretakers of the industry and indeed customary fishing. Now, what do we do when we're rebuilding a fishery? And if we block access from any harvesters to rebuild a fishery, in what circumstances, or any, do we leave an entitlement for hapu to continue to access the fishery? Now, I don't want to worsen the debate about Māori treaty rights, but there are a host of people bringing forward an argument to me, surely a rāhui or a restriction is a restriction for everyone. So that will be covered off in this in this document. And look, I will gladly answer any questions you've got. Part 2 does deal with cameras, because I'm very conscious that it'll be quite a topical issue given the level of animus from various NGOs towards this industry.
Yeah, would you like to see cameras removed entirely? Just in terms of
Sadly, I campaigned on that and I lost that debate, so that's come and gone now.
So just to be clear, the Labour's, the previous government's rules on discard, you want to change your...
Sorry?
The previous government, there's recent changes on discards.
Yeah.
You want to overturn that, you want to get rid of that.
So there are two areas. How do we accurately report, i.e. fish that may have been lost, and discards policy? If it was easy, it would have been taken care of 25 years ago. And this document lays out a host of options which the industry, the officials, and myself want in the public. Number one, should the industry continue to be forced if they, through poor management, bring back fish beyond their entitlement to land? Or if there are cameras on your boats, and vast number of these boats have got cameras now, and some like Moana Pacific voluntarily put them on. So I kind of knew I was losing the debate when my own beloved company, Moana Pacific, that used to be a part of Te Hukai Moana, won't agree with me. So look, the options are here.
Will your two other coalition partners, do they disagree with you as far as your stance on cameras on boat?
Sorry. He's getting a bad habit. Yeah, I must be angry with Joe or something like that. This document, I'll be straight with you, reflects the fact that we all campaigned on different things, and the document does not commit Cabinet to one particular outcome. I think it's fair to say that Rewi, Mr. Seymour, he wants to see deregulation. I think it's fair to say as well, though, that National would be very conscious that somehow I don't unwittingly fracture the social license around fishing. I think I'm enhancing it, but I accept that my view is only one in a myriad of voices.
You just mentioned your old company having a slightly different position
Yeah.
to you. Do you think that you're sort of out of step or out of touch?
Yeah, they think I am. They think I am. And the sense that, and Moana is here and they can talk for themselves, but I respect the fact that they moved ahead so they could better manage the provenance story. They could better manage accountability when things do go wrong. And hey, things do go wrong. For example, a boat sunk recently in Kauo Island. I don't know all the details. I presume they had too much fish on it. But that's the value of political debate. There may be a sense amongst the younger generation that my views are Tyrannus Rex or something like that, but that's politics.
And on the issue of Rāhui,
Yeah.
on the issue of Rāhui and whether hapu should still be
Yeah.
where do you stand?
Oh, I don't want to worsen any of the Crown commitments in our treaty settlements. But if a fishery is genuinely stressed for a period of time, my preference would be no one has access to that fishery. I accept, however, though, some of the treaty settlement expectations might be at variance with that stance that I'm in. Yes?
That the social license is in peril and that overseas customers are demanding much more stringent sustainability from the product?
I think social license has been politicised and has fallen into the hands of ideologists. No person of any significance in the fishing industry in New Zealand goes out there to deliberately undermine the sustainability of the resource that underpins the value of the quota and our industry. So that's you asked me a question, what do I think about social license? Now, on the question of overseas markets, I think that New Zealand seafood every day sells itself. We don't have a problem selling it.
If that proposal, just going back to my question, if that proposal went ahead in the
Yeah.
sense that a full up would take place,
Yeah.
is it the first time that a settlement would be changed sort of like, is that the first time that those rights in a settlement would be changed?
Yeah, well, it's a very tricky area. For those of you who may recall, 1992 was the historic Sea Lord settlement. Customary rights were safeguarded where the Crown took on an enforceable duty to pass regulations to enable the continuation of non-commercial mātaitae fishing. So we'll have to be very careful that we get the balance right. I wouldn't know whether or not that would represent a hitherto unknown fracturing of a settlement at this stage.
So we've got some people from the fishing industry.
Yes.
Kind of
Right, where are you?
fishers,
No,
CEs,
don't come up here.
seafood New
Where,
Zealand.
up. Hello, away. Mr. Loader,
I
Mr. Loader.
thought you might want to arrange your voices.
These are the guys who actually catch fish. Please ask them 1 or 3 questions. They have been on this waka a lot longer than I've been in politics. And this is the chairman of CEO of Sea.
Kia ora.
You're the expert. Don't go bloody hiding in
What do you
water.
make of the consultation document that proposed changes?
Look, I think it's a great start to being able to amend a framework which has been around for a long time whilst the industry has changed substantially. The amount of technology we're using now in terms of catch reporting, in terms of ensuring that the officials know every day what we're catching, where we're catching it, means that it enables a framework to become much more agile and flexible than what it is today. That in turn takes out costs, it enables us to invest more in innovation and more in changing things like modernising our boats, which is good for the fisheries and it's good for fishing and it's good for the economy. That said, I think it's a start. I think there is more to do, and the Minister did reference other changes which we are looking to recommend as part of working with the Ministry of Primary Industries, and that document is under preparation as we speak. In terms of cameras and landings and discards, which I know a couple of you were asking, really what the Minister's talking about is you've been able to discard once it's been monitored, but you still have to declare that catch against your quota holdings, or you have to pay deemed or double deemed value. So it doesn't overturn what has been set in place by the Labor government. What it does is manage the process of how that's actually going to occur.
So is the argument that because it's being monitored by the cameras, what you're discarding will be available to FBI to view? Is that the reason?
That's 100% correct. And what it also means is you don't have to land species where actually it has no economic value. You're then able to return it to the sea, and that's the best place to return it, because I bring those fish onto sea and then they go to landfill, and then it gets turned into methanol, and has a whole lot of unintended consequences. So by being able to return it to the ecosystem, then it's a much better result for us all. And because it's either monitored by observers or it's on a camera, then you can prove that that it's been done. And I think that's one of the biggest changes is the technology and the ability for more surety for the ministry.
There are hardly any observers in the whole fleet.
That's correct, but in terms of some of those parts where you haven't got observers or haven't got cameras, then you won't be able to discard.
Okay, so the gap's filled there then.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah,
you're-
but you can have your own cameras, and as long as you can prove that it's date stamped and appropriate, I wouldn't see why that wouldn't be usable to show that you've discarded appropriately, because at the end of the day you've still got to put it against your quota holdings.
And is that common? Is it common for in the fleet where the cameras haven't been rolled out yet, fishers are putting their own cameras on board?
So Moana, for instance, has covered nearly all of its fleet, even though they're not legislatively required. We have a significant amount of observers on the Sealord fleet just because of the size of our vessels and where we fish. We'll now look at whether cameras are an appropriate answer now that the land and discard rules have been put out in this document to see where that would be appropriate.
So you see certain value in having those cameras there, so potentially a little bit of difference of opinion with our minister here. He's not a big fan of it.
Look, I think there's value in cameras in terms of the ability for the ministry to be able to get transparency in terms of what happens at sea. I think that's a good thing. Equally I agree that I think saying that we're going to surveil people at work every day, every minute that they're working, I don't agree with that should just be clearly available to anyone and everybody. So I'm in agreement that it shouldn't be OIA-able.